I'm Dr. Laurie Santos. I'm a professor of psychology at Yale University, where I teach the science of well-being, the popular Coursera class that explores how you can use evidence-based practices to feel better. I've also turned that class into a podcast called The Happiness Lab. And today I want to talk about coping. World Mental Health Day is on October 10th. The problem right now is that normally on World Mental Health Day, we're all thinking about how we can flourish a little bit more. But I think this has become even more challenging during the year that is 2020. This is just not a great time. When times are tough, many of us want to do things to make ourselves feel better, but we pick the wrong stuff. We eat something unhealthy, go inward and kind of plop down and watch television. There are better, more evidence-based ways to cope. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to give you my 5 favorite tips for coping when times are really challenging and tough. So first coping tip is exercise. We forget that exercise is a way to bump up our well-being in ways we often don't expect. One study actually showed that a half hour of cardio every morning is in some cases as effective as a prescription of Zoloft. The problem is that we often don't think of exercise as a coping skill. Again, we know it's kind of good for improving our bodies and improving our fitness, but we forget that it's the kind of thing we should immediately turn to when we're having a crappy day. My forms of exercise are actually hiking outside. I live near this beautiful state park in Connecticut, and so I'm often out hiking there. But also yoga, which is something I can do even if it's a really rainy, gross day outside. I can always pull out my mat. And that gets to my second favorite strategy for coping when times are tough: taking some time for gratitude. Happy people tend to spontaneously focus on the good things in life. Now you might say that's because they're happy. I'm in a challenging situation. I don't necessarily do that. But the research suggests that you can retrain your mind to focus on happier things simply by paying attention to the kinds of things you're grateful for, maybe through the act of just scribbling them down. In fact, the data suggests that the act of just writing down 3 to 5 things you're grateful for every day can significantly improve your well-being in as little as 2 weeks. I have a really beat up old notebook that I use, and I really try to force myself to think about a few things that I'm grateful for. Sometimes they're just the basics, I'm alive today, I'm above ground. Sometimes they're really tiny things, like the taste of my coffee, but oftentimes they're the people that I really care about. My partner, my students here at Yale, my friends, those things wind up in the list too. Now we jump to evidence-based strategy number 3, and that is sleep. I try to double down on positive sleep habits. The first thing I try to do is to get rid of my technology right before bed. This is incredibly hard for me because I'm addicted to my phone, but my phone actually has a spot where it goes to bed. I actually made it a little tiny bed that I can kind of plop the phone on when it goes to sleep. And that means my phone is out of the way. Right before I go to bed, I'm not seeing anxiety-provoking stuff or kind of attention-grabbing stuff on the internet. Evidence-based strategy number 4, get social. Every available survey of happy people suggests that happy people are more social. Happy people prioritize time with their friends and family members, and they really try to schedule it in when times get really busy. Now, this is something that doesn't come easy to me. When I'm having a challenging time, my instinct is to go inward. It's to be away from all the people I care about and just kind of be by myself. But the data suggests that that's not a great strategy. The simple act of being with other people and chatting with other folks can make us feel better. One thing I do is to set up some Zoom meetings. I do some Zoom spa nights with my roommates and have a weekly standing Zoom meeting with my family members who are far away and I can't see very often. But my favorite way to get social is to combine it with the other tips, like double down on those coping strategies. And so oftentimes my exercise also involves other people. Now we get to my 5th evidence-based tip for coping. And that, ironically enough, is that to cope, we sometimes need to be with our emotions. I know when times are tough for me, I really want to run away from my anxiety, run away from my sadness, just not feel any of that stuff. But the sad thing is emotions just don't work that way. Scientifically, you can't just avoid them, and it's even worse to kind of suppress them. I use a meditation technique called RAIN. It's an acronym that was popularized by the meditation teacher Tara Brach, and it stands for recognize, accept, investigate, nurture. So let's say I'm feeling just frustrated in the morning. I look at the news and I see some yucky stuff and I'm like, oh, I can notice my chest getting tighter. That's the point where I want to do the R, recognize. This is the negative emotion. It doesn't feel super awesome. Let me sit with this for a second. This is the time when I can kind of take 5 minutes to just process. And that's when you do the A, accept. which is just, invite the emotion in. Like, this doesn't feel super hot, but I can kind of sit with it for a little while. I actually use the phrase, you're good, you can sit there, you're good. Then we jump into the I, which is an investigate, which is to try to notice how the emotion feels inside your body. Is it making your chest tight? Is my kind of neck muscles kind of constricting in? What does it really feel like? And this part is important because if you can just get curious about what the feeling feels like, you can sometimes take a little bit of its weight away. Finally, you can engage in the N, which is the most important, which is nurture. Often we don't have that much self-compassion when we're feeling kind of yucky. We sort of go after ourselves. The nurture instinct is actually just the opposite. It's to take time to really think about how you would consult a friend if they were going through something like this, how you would talk to a young child who is going through the same emotion you did. What would it look like to really nutritiously nurture yourself? If you can engage in this process of RAIN, it's really, really helpful. I found it to be incredibly useful, especially with all the negative emotions we're experiencing in 2020. I hope hearing these evidence-based tips have given you some sense that we're all in this together. So I hope you'll come with me on the journey to promoting better mental health and more flourishing in our lives.